Now, the area worst affected by this weekend's earthquake is the Pakistan-administered area of Kashmir. Much of it's rural and mountainous, making the relief efforts even more difficult. Rehman Chishti, a former advisor to the president of the Pakistani People's Party, is with me here in the studio to talk about it more. A very good morning to you. Thanks for coming in. The rural areas obviously have been very badly affected. Is, as far as you can see, aid getting to them?
No, it's not. To be frank, aid is not getting out to the rural areas. It's getting out to Muzaffarabad, the capital of Azad Kashmir, where there has been devastation. It's been described as a city of death because there's been a lot of catastrophe there. But beyond that, into the rural areas, the village has been wiped out. And from speaking to people that I've spoken to this morning on the mobile phones who have them, no aid has been dropped down, and rescue teams have not got to the rural areas in Azad Kashmir.
Why?
Well, I think it could either be that they don't have the resources, or it could be down to coordination, but also what it implies is that we need more rescue teams from the international community, and that's where I can say the British government has been absolutely fantastic in terms of sending rescue teams out there, because that's what the people of Kashmir and Pakistan need now, because those are the people who can save lives. Financial aid is a secondary issue, and I think with the British teams out there, Turkey have sent teams, along with Japan and France, and that is making a big difference. But we need more of them, because at the moment we see that it's being used in Islamabad, but the real catastrophe is out in the rural areas, which is what Azad Kashmir is made of.
We've seen pictures of heavy machinery in these places. Do the mountain villages have any sort of machinery that they could dig people out?
No, not at all. I think in terms of those rural communities out there, they have picks and axes which they use to get by their daily lives. They're farming communities. What one has to bear in mind is that those picks and axes and spades would be in their homes when this catastrophe occurred. So therefore, what you're left with is people trying to get people out with their bare hands. And there's only a certain amount you can do with your bare hands.
So helicopters is obviously the way forward. Yeah. Are they not dropping food? And
no, as far as the information I have, in terms of Balakot this morning after 36 hours, they were dropping some food there. But in terms of other areas from Muzaffarabad, in terms of Batangi and other villages there, they haven't had any food dropped there or any water. And it is an issue and against time now, because food is running out, water is running out, and these communities depend on wells which have been taken away by these landslides. So these are people who really need the help, and I think we need to focus on the rural communities now.
From what you're saying, Ray, it sounds like that we aren't actually aware at the moment of the real scale of this.
No. Yesterday morning I said we're looking at 50,000 when Pakistani authorities had said about 18,000. Now we're looking at 40,000. I think that figure of 50,000 which I gave will rise, and I think it will rise for up to about 70,000, because apart from Azad Kashmir, you've got to look at NWFP, Northwestern Province of Pakistan, which is also rural communities there, and that I've been told from sources this morning is looking up to 30,000 there. So I think that the real figure and the catastrophe will go into well beyond the figures that we put at 40,000 this morning.
We know that there are now lots of aid agencies on the ground working. There are military on the ground, though, as you say, not in the air. Who's coordinating this whole relief?
I think it's being coordinated by the Pakistani government. They're coordinating it. The international community can only send their resources, and it's left to those authorities. I don't think they've been effective in the rural areas.
Would they have a disaster emergency plan?
What they should. Every country should have. I know civilian government must have one there, and I want to know why the military don't have this emergency disaster plan, because although they've never had an earthquake before, but for any disaster you need to have an emergency plan there. And also one has to bear in mind there is a military government there. They're asking for helicopters, but a large proportion of Pakistan's GDP, up to 60%, spent on the armed forces. Where are the helicopters that were there from the government funds? I accept we need more helicopters, and I think the international community is sending them, but I ask for more helicopters so that aid can be given to the people at the front line.
The mountain villages that you've been talking about, presumably the houses are mud and clay, are they? So all the more vulnerable?
Certainly. Most houses there are mud and clay, although there's some built up, firm houses, which, from my information, are still surviving. But the majority of the houses there are mud and clay. That's why they've fallen down.
These pictures, Raymond, are just incredible. I mean, that's whole towns, villages, communities absolutely devastated. Are you saying that there is no aid, there is no people in these places looking for survivors?
No, there are no people there. From the information I have, in terms of rural areas, there have been no rescue teams there, there has been no aid there, and they're left with trying to dig people out themselves. Having said earlier that there are no diggers, there's no cranes there, they're left with their bare hands. What you've got now is dead bodies out in the open, which aren't being buried. With that, you're going to get disease, and also you're going to get hunger. And I think it's about time we focus now on the rural areas and move away from the capital. Islamabad, of course, has been affected, but not to an extent where we've seen the destruction and devastation in Azad Kashmir, but also in the Indian side of Kashmir. And from what I know, the Indian authorities have been fantastic in terms of getting that. And of course, apart from Azad Kashmir, they need the assistance. And I think the international community should focus on wherever aid is needed to go to those areas.
Rehman Chishti, really interesting to hear your thoughts this morning. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.